Jamaica, good morning again. Despite taboo, incest alive in Jamaica. That was a headline of an eye-opening article in the Sunday Gleaner. So here to take a closer look at some of the points raised while shining some light on the issue, JCF Sergeant at the Center of Investigation of Sexual Offences and Child Abuse, Florene Clarke. And on the phone, we have Senior Lecturer at UWI, Mona, Dr. Claudette Crawford, who is not just a senior lecturer, but she is also a clinical social worker. Good morning to you both. On the phone, we have Dr. Crawford Brown. Dr. Crawford Brown, are you on the phone?
Yes. Hi. Morning, Yanni.
All right, great. And we also have Florene Clarke. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
All
and thanks
right.
for inviting Sissoko to come to share with you.
Sissoko, I don't know where to start, but let's talk about the article that was in the newspaper. Let's start with you, Florene. Incest is alive in Jamaica. Explain to us, what is incest? What are the cases we're seeing in Jamaica? I know you're Kingston and St. Andrew, but give us a little idea of what's happening in Jamaica and what incest really is.
Okay, so incest is committed by a female who knowingly and willingly has sex with a blood relative, or I should say sexual intercourse with a blood relative, for example, your father, a brother, a nephew, an uncle, and a grandfather. On the other hand, a male knowing that the individual is mother, daughter, niece, aunt, or grandmother, and willingly have sexual intercourse with that individual. That's what is classified as incest under the Sexual Offences Act of 2009.
What does the law say about it? It is illegal.
Precisely,
It is wrong.
yes. And if committed and goes to the circuit court, one can be or may be given life sentence. Where there are attempts according to the Sexual Offences Acts, then there's a possibility that you may be convicted for up to 10 years.
So this is not about pedophilia or somebody abusing a child. This is two adults would also be seen as...
Not necessarily two adults. It can be children, especially... Of course, you'd know that the Sexual Offences Act state that a child is a person under the age of 16. However, what you'll find in certain circumstances is that that blood relative may coerce the child into having a sexual relationship with him.
So is that called abuse or incest in the court?
It is, if it's a blood relative, it is incest, and it is also abuse, child abuse. Right.
But two adults would be considered
incest, right.
Okay, and they can be charged.
Precisely, because it is a crime.
It is a crime.
Yes.
I want to go now to Dr. Claudette Crawford Brown. Dr. Brown, you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me a little bit about the mental state of people who engage in incest activities. What's going on in their minds? What's happening there?
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to give the context of incest and explain where I'm coming from in terms of why I'm able to be on authority or on this issue, where have I seen these cases before. The context of incest is that incest is a subset of sexual abuse. And one of the first points I want to make is that it is different in terms of treating the child, and I do this as a clinical social worker. I am doing it within the context of a center which we operated out of the Department of Sociology, Psychology, and Social Work, where we were doing a number of outreach projects over, we're talking about 3 decades of seeing children and their families who are victims. Now, the most important issue that didn't come out in the article that I stated in the interview is that incest is a break in trust. And so when you have all of the symptoms of sexual abuse, which include eventually somebody having mental disorders, which are psychotic, like schizophrenia, etc., when you look at the data, not just in Jamaica, but In the UK, for example, they found that 60-odd% of the women who were in a particular mental hospital had been abused as children. Now, within that group, if the children are abused sexually, they are the ones who by a relative, they are the ones who are most at risk for mental health problems. And you find that child who is abused by another perpetrator, say a one-time rape, will be easier to recover, because what happens with the family member is that there's a breakdown of trust between a child and a father, or a child and a stepfather, uncle, etc. And because of that trust that is supposed to exist in a family, when there is breakdown of that trust, you get some very insidious problems which last a very, very long time. And so the mental health of a child or an individual who's been involved in incest could range from suicidal, depressive behavior, mental disorders, which could go as far as schizophrenia. And that may happen 10, 15 years after the incident. And so it runs the whole gamut of all of the mental disorders. And that is based on the breakdown of trust, which is the foundation for the emotional fabric of a child when they're growing up.
God. How many cases are you seeing out there, Doc?
Well, remember, I gave the context I'm giving is that I only operated over a 2-decade period out of a center where we saw children who were coming to us with emotional and behavioral problems. So in my last book in 2010, where I looked at the cases, I was just using the same police data that you are maybe looking at, and which is on our website. And you find that within the group of children who are raped, you are talking about in 2000, there were 147 cases, and in 2008, there were 449. When you're talking about carnal abuse, you're talking about 400, 300, 409 in 2004, 462. The police does not break that down into which ones are incest and which are not.
Right.
But just from anecdotal information, we tend to have higher rates of carnal abuse and rape in Jamaica and the Caribbean than other countries. Particularly in the age group 4, you have them groups like 4 to 11, 11 to 14, and then you have the 15 to 19, and then you have the 25 and over. And what I'm suggesting is that the children who are in the younger age groups are the ones who are more at risk for incest. And because, I'm the barrel child grandmother, and I coined the term, I had been looking at this problem from a research point of view to see if children who were left by their mothers due to migration were more at risk for incest, and found that this is a problem. It's not that they're more at risk than others, but it's one of the factors we have to take into account.
Okay.
And so, as usual, in Jamaica, we don't have specific data in all of the areas we need, so I wouldn't be able to tell you how many of those carnal abuse cases are in fact incest. But we know that we have a higher rate of sexual abuse and carnal abuse in our younger age groups versus, say, the UK. When you look at the data, their rape cases or their sexual abuse cases occur more in the 19 to 24. Ours are occurring in the 9 to 14.
Oh, God.
More than others.
Did you say 9? You said 9 to 14?
Yes.
9-year-olds?
I'm talking about 4-year-olds as young as 4, as young as infants in our country.
But, Doc, let me ask you something. Where is the therapy? Who helps? I mean, I know there are victim support unit. There's a victim support unit, etc. There's SOCA, there's CDA, CPFSA. But really and truly, do we have enough mental health care services for the children we know who have been victims?
Yes, this is a very good question. And it's not just therapy. that is a problem. I look at the problem as multidimensional in
It is.
terms of what we need.
Yep.
We need to be able to have the therapy that's at the micro level. And we don't have enough clinicians who are trained to deal with trauma, because you know that this is going to be causing trauma. If
Yes.
you're talking about breakdown of trust and breaking down the child's emotional infrastructure. So you do have agencies in the private sector, you have your family life ministries, etc. My concern is that there is not enough specialized training for persons to work with trauma. They have broad groups of people who are able to detect that this is a problem. But you're going to need, with younger children and older children too, play therapy, for example, is one of the things that's proven to be very efficient in dealing with trauma. And we, in the tertiary institutions, particularly at the University of the West Indies, where I work, are putting a little bit more emphasis on training even a small cadre of play therapists who would be better able to deal with trauma. So you do have some work. But other needs would include what do you do in terms of policy? What do you do in terms of research to and available data? The person who called me on the radio from the newspaper should be able to look at the data over the years that I have done over the past 3 decades, or other lecturers. Dr. Sam Vaughan, Dr. Pernell Bell, all of us have been working on this. This should be online.
It should be, but not only that, we understand there's a big culture of silence, in this country. So many cases go unreported, and I'm wondering now, and I'm going to ask you, Ms. Clarke, to tell me, when they go to the hospital, a lot of these girls and women, because we're talking about incest, not just child abuse, but incest, and they have children, and it's found out that the child is a product of an incest relationship or an incest situation, whether it's an adult or an abuse situation. What does the state do, and how do you track these things when the children are born of incest? The DNA must say, okay, it's an uncle, it's a whatever. Like, what are we putting in place in law and policy and action to detect and to deal with it?
Okay, in terms of the hospital, for other sexual offenses detected, yes, there's a reporting mechanism where the hospital will immediately call CISOCA, especially in the cases of children under the age of 16, for sexual intercourse with a person under the age of 16. However, I cannot share whether or not we have data in relation to incest being reported to us through that medium. I can share with you, however, though, that the reports that we are getting in relation to incest, they are very low. And I believe it's because of this taboo. Yes, because, of course, we know about the story with Absalom in the Bible and Tamar, and we know that, yes, it's something that is cursed. And I believe that's what is causing the real hush-hush. In the same breath, I believe that, yes, you spoke of policy and something needs to be done. And besides that, we need to be educating Jamaica more. Looking from it from not just the individual perspective, but the community, looking at the schools. Right, and so at CISOCA, what we have there is the Community Safety and Security Branch that goes out on invitation and otherwise, because we do have like impromptu meetings in community. So you are going out on the road and you see a group of persons, you stop, you interact with them. Otherwise, we get invitation from schools. Right,
so asking the questions to get the answer to deal with this.
Precisely, and educating them as well as to what is incest and what we can do for them. But I'm saying that...
Can I comment on that?
One second. Finish your thought there, Ms. Florene.
Soon come down.
Okay.
When it comes on to solving crime, it's not the police alone. So those persons in the community who are aware needs to be sharing the information with us.
Okay.
Right? Because that taboo thing is something hidden. But you need to be observing the relationship between a father and a daughter. And you will see the differences. Dr. Claudette Brown spoke previously of the differences in the child's appearance. Right? And so we need to be alert in understanding how to protect our children.
It's so sad that we had to have this conversation, but we do need the education. Doc, I've been given the wrap signal by my team, so I'm going to ask you to give us your final comments on this very worrying subject matter, please.
Okay, just quickly to mention, as our speaker just said, that the culture of silence is there, but this is not unique to Jamaica. Culture of silence relating to incest is something that is always there. What we need to be doing is having eyes and ears for the training of trainers, training of the police, training of the teachers in schools. Those social workers who are in schools need to be expanded and trained to be able to pick out the problem. And you have specialized after-school programs for those children. Guidance counselors need special training so that they can pick out the children, and then you give them the extra care that they need.
All right.
If you just go as if everything is okay and all of these problems are the same, and you don't have those specialized persons who are trained to pick early detection and pick them out of the kindergarten school, etc., you're not going to be able to deal with it across the board from kindergarten to university.
I hear you, Doc. Thank you. So what you're saying is let's train every teacher from the colleges now how to use play therapy and how to identify a situation that may be happening with a child. Unfortunately, I have to leave it there. Call Sissoko, call the CPFSA, call the police. If you know of anything, any situation of a child being abused or incest, I have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Definitely. Perpetrators, know yourself. Get your mind checked. Get help. JCF Sergeant at the Center of Investigation of Sexual Offenses and Child Abuse at Sissoko, Florene Clarke, thank you, and Senior Lecturer in the Department of Sociology, Psychology and Social Work at UWI, Mona, Dr. Claudette Crawford. Heavy topic there, my people, but it had to be done. We're definitely lightening the mood when we return from the break.